This print depicts a famous tea house that once stood beyond Osaka Pass after leaving Otsu-juku. The distance from Kusatsu-juku to Otsu-juku was approximately 14.4 kilometers, making it a somewhat long stretch even along the Tokaido. However, by following the Yabase Road from Oiwake, where the famous Ubagamochiya stood, and crossing Lake Biwa by boat, travelers could shorten the journey by about 8 kilometers. Meanwhile, the overland Tokaido continued southward, winding gently and making a broad curve around the area of Ohe before reaching the Sita no Kirahashi Bridge. The Sita River is the only natural river flowing out of Lake Biwa. For that reason, Sita no Kirahashi was an essential bridge that travelers heading to Kyoto from the east simply had to cross. Hiroshige also depicted Sita no Kirahashi during the Edo period as evening glow at Sita in his series of The 8 Views of Omi, capturing it with great atmosphere. Mount Mikami, visible in the far right background, was affectionately known as the Fuji of Omi. Sita no Kirahashi was not only a vital transportation hub but also a strategic point in the defense of Kyoto, and until 1889 it remained the only bridge across the Sita River. Consequently, since ancient times it became the stage for numerous conflicts, beginning with the Jinshin War, and was often destroyed. Yet each time, it was rebuilt at the shallowest crossing point available and continued to support the flow of people and goods. This is a Google Street View image of the present Kirahashi Bridge seen from the south side. During the Edo period, the shogunate prohibited the construction of any bridge other than Kirahashi and assigned successive lords of Zizi Castle the responsibility of protecting and maintaining it. Even so, records show that the bridge was rebuilt 18 times during the 100 years following 1795. Today, however, as you can see, many bridges span the river. After crossing Sita no Kirahashi Bridge, the Tokaido turned right and headed north. It then curved around Zizi Castle, designed by Tado Takatora and projecting into Lake Biwa, keeping the castle on the traveler's right-hand side before continuing northward. After passing through the town of Zizi, the road turned left and headed west once again. Beyond Jichuji Temple, dedicated to Kiso Yoshinika, it met the ferry route from Yabase Port at the Aishiba Landing. Continuing westward, the road passed through Kayamachi and Otsu-juku and arrived at Fudanotsuji. This was a crossroads where roads branched in 4 directions. Heading north led through Miidara Temple to the Hakakyukado, while proceeding straight west led to the Kazekigo route, which reached Yamashina without crossing Osaka Pass. At Fudanotsuji, the Tokaido turned left, passed in front of the Honjin of Otsu-juku, and climbed gently toward Osaka Pass. Today, the route crosses the JR Tokaido line, passes beneath the Mishin Expressway, and then gradually descends after crossing the pass. Now, let us look at Otsu from the Tsuteya edition of the 53 stations of the Tokaido. What is depicted here is the scenery of Aishiba Harbor, which once stood near present-day Keihan Aishiba Station. In the distance, Mount Hii and the Hira Mountains can also be seen. During the Nara period, Otsu was known as Furutsu and flourished as an important transportation hub from ancient times. It was also the site of Emperor Tenchi's Omi Otsu Palace and later developed as a thriving town of Omi merchants. In the Edo period, Otsu functioned not only as a post town but also as a port where goods from Aori and Hokuriku were gathered. It is said that markets were held almost daily due to the town's prosperity. It was the largest post town on the Tokaido, stretching about 4 kilometers from north to south and supporting a population of approximately 15,000 people. Next, let us examine the depiction of Otsu in the Kisakado Rakujukai Utsuji series. Here, Hiroshige portrays the bustling in-district around the Honjin, the liveliest area of Otsu. As seen from Idapa Slope, the image clearly conveys the scale and prosperity of this post town. Lake Biwa spreads out beyond the picture, and the pack ox depicted on the left is carrying goods from Otsu toward Kyoto. Although ox carts were generally prohibited on the Tokaido until the end of the Edo period, the use of ox carts was specially permitted between Kyoto and Otsu because of the heavy volume of freight traffic. Now let us take a closer look at Hiroshige's depiction of Otsu. At Hashirii, beyond Osaka Pass, there stood a tea house supplied by a spring of pure water. On the left side of the image is a well-curb marked Hashirii, and a fishmonger is washing his wooden fish tray with the cool water overflowing from it. A child approaching while watching the scene is rendered with remarkable charm. This tea house was also famous for its Hashirii mochi in the back of the shop. Travelers appear to be resting and ordering the specialty rice cakes. At the front, 2 women can be seen kneading the mochi. 3 ox carts are descending the slope along the highway. Each is covered with a straw sunshade, evoking the heat of midsummer. The lead cart carries rice bales, while the 2 behind appear to be loaded with brushwood or charcoal. They were likely transporting goods unloaded at the port of Otsu on their way to Kyoto. In fact, other version of this print exists, one that includes mountains in the background. However, anyone visiting the site can see that it lies within a narrow valley enclosed by mountains on both sides, making it impossible to view distant mountain ranges. It is thought that mountains appeared in the first printing but were later removed after their inaccuracy was pointed out. Here, let us look at the Tokaido Mishozu, which is believed to have served as one of Hiroshige's references. It is clear that Hiroshige's composition closely follows it. However, instead of oxen, people carrying rice bales are depicted, and the road is shown as flat rather than sloping. The Isangu Mishozu depicts an even broader view of the area. Behind the tea house stands a pavilion, and carefully designed ponds and waterfalls can also be seen. According to the accompanying explanation, statues of Ono no Komachi and Yakushi Naiore stood around the pond. This makes it clear that the establishment was quite large in scale. In the Reissho edition, a shop selling the famous Otsu paintings is depicted. Otsu were folk paintings sold as souvenirs and protective charms to travelers on the Tokaido, often portraying demons, deities, and Buddhist figures in a humorous manner. They were said to have been extremely popular at the time. The Gyosho edition depicts a tea house near Aishiba harbor selling jingoro buna, a famous fish of Lake Biwa. The settlement visible on the opposite shore is Otsu Harbor. The poem edition depicts the landing at Aishiba Harbor and the row of tea houses lining the Tokaido. The settlement on the left is Otsu Harbor, and to its right the view extends as far as Kirasaki, one of the 8 views of Omi. In Hokusai's 53 stations, a fishmonger carrying his wares is carefully depicted washing his fish tray at the well in front of the Hashirii mochi shop. Today, Jeshinji Temple stands on this site. Please locate Jeshinji, marked by the yellow triangle, in the sequence of Google Maps images. This is Jeshinji as seen on Google Street View. Today, National Route 1, the Mishin Expressway, and the Keihan Railway run side by side through this narrow valley beyond Osaka Pass. As a result, it is difficult to capture photographs that evoke the atmosphere of the past. During the Edo period, however, houses lined both sides of the highway throughout the Hashirii area. Shops selling local specialties such as Otsu paintings, Otsu abacuses, and sewing needles crowded together, while travelers and pack animals passed constantly through this lively district. The Hashirii tea house depicted by Hiroshige was founded by the first Eguchi Ichiroman. Around 1764, he began making droplet-shaped rice cakes using spring water from Hashirii and Omi rice, serving them to travelers. They soon became a local specialty. The tea house was subsequently passed down through generations of the Eguchi family, but after a branch was established in front of Iwashimazu Hachimangu Shrine in 1910, the original establishment eventually closed. By the late Meiji period, the once thriving town had gradually declined. and the Hashirii Teahouse and its gardens fell into ruin. The Japanese-style painter Hashimoto Kansetsu, regretting the loss of the site, purchased it as a private villa in 1914, and it later became the present-day Jeshinji Temple. It is said that the well curb depicted in the print still survives today. However, as you can see, the Tokaido in front of the site is now flat and does not resemble the sloping road shown by Hiroshige. In fact, the side facing Osaka Pass rises slightly uphill. In fact, I attempted to photograph the entire Jeshinji grounds from the window of a Keihan train in order to capture the whole site in a single image. The resulting photograph is shown here. At that time, I discovered a stone marker beside the entrance to Keihan Otani Station inscribed with the words Original Hashirii Mochi Main Store. Although it is uncertain whether this was truly the original site founded by the first Taguchi family, it led me to consider another possibility that this may have been the location Hiroshige actually depicted. When Hiroshige was 31 years old, he accompanied a shogunal procession delivering horses to the imperial court and traveled along the Tokaido as an official artist. It is possible that when later creating the 53 stations, he unconsciously merged the scenery he remembered with the appearance of the Hashirii Mochi main store. If that is the case, the slope in front of the shop and the mountain that appeared in the first printing begin to make sense in relation to this landscape. Looking at this photograph, one can understand how Hiroshige might have confused the two scenes, even if the direction of the slope is reversed. Finally, please take a look at this Google Street View panorama looking from Otsu toward Kyoto. During the Edo period, the area around Hashirii beyond Osaka Pass was crowded with houses and souvenir shops. Today, however, roads and railways compete for space within the narrow valley. From here, the Tokaido passes through Yamashina and skirts the foothills of Higashiyama as it finally approaches Kyoto.